Have you ever wondered how deep-sea animals survive in such extreme conditions? Well, why don't we go back to the basics? In order to understand the process of deep-sea adaptations, we must first familiarize ourselves with the concept of a mutation. A mutation occurs in the genome. A genome is all of the genetic makeup of an organism passed on to the offspring. Genes are one specific segment of DNA that codes for a specific trait. Genes can then be transcribed into RNA. Sometimes during this process, there can be mistakes called mutations. Mutations can be detrimental to a cell or have benefits. The mutations on a gene are then passed down to offspring and can be favored by natural selection, which changes the allele frequency of a population. Some types of mutations are nonsense, silent, missense, and deletion and insertion mutations. The silent mutation is the mutation in the introns, where there is usually very little effect on the gene or protein. A nonsense mutation is where there is an accidental change in the sequence creating a stop codon, which in turn prematurely ends the creation of a protein. A missense mutation is when a nucleotide is put in the wrong spot, creating a different coding sequence of codons in the ribosome. Deletion mutations are when one or multiple nucleotides are deleted, which in turn can rearrange the coding for the ribosome to read, or delete a full codon, resulting in the proton not being created how it was supposed to be. Insertion is when one or multiple nucleotides are added to the RNA strand, which can rearrange the coding sequence or add a full codon. The juvenile RNA molecule consists of introns and exons. The introns are blank spaces that are cut out in order to create mature RNA that then exits the nucleus in search of a ribosome. The ribosome then uses the genetic code to create a functional protein. As such, mutations are a necessity for the survival of organisms in harsh environments, just like the deep sea.
There are many organisms that populate the deep sea. But in this video, we want to draw your attention to heterotrophs, and fish in particular. A heterotroph is an organism that must acquire its energy through the consumption of complex organic substances, since it is unable to produce its own food. A deep-sea fish is a heterotroph, since it must eat plankton and decayed matter on the seafloor to produce its own energy. Certain fish that dwell in the deep sea have genetic mutations that have enabled their survival. At such deep sea levels, minimal levels of light, frigid temperatures, little food and oxygen, and high pressures all prove to be a challenge to this organism's survival. As such, their genetic makeup experiences a change to accommodate these harsh conditions. The phylogenetics of fish is especially diverse, and certain types of fish have drastic mutations. For example, to compensate for the lack of light at the bottom of the ocean, the genes of certain fish do not code for eyes or for pigment in their skin. More specifically, studies found that in cave-dwelling fish, there was a loss of opsin genes in the photoreceptor cells in the eye, and a loss of crystalline genes, which give the lens its properties. This fostered the breaking down of both the lens and the retina in their eyes. Due to the lack of light that reaches the deepest parts of the ocean, shapes and color are not conceivable, and thus deep-sea fish do not need to rely on their vision. Scientists believe that the deletion of the MPV-17 protein, which is found in the mitochondria, and the mutation of the protein tyrosine plays a role in producing the albino phenotype found in deep-sea fish. This mutation gives the fish their translucent pale appearance, making it easier for them to blend into their surroundings and camouflage themselves. The loss of CREB34, a binding protein that contributes to the fish's cell's survival and proliferation, is theorized to lead to decreased fecundity. Fecundity is the maximum number of times an organism can reproduce in its lifetime. Since these deep-sea fish have limited sources of food, the expansion of taste-related genes may cause an increase in the amount of taste buds they have. All these mutations show the way in which these fish have maximized their energy efficiency and resources. Actually, all of these mutations can be linked to evolutionary processes in these organisms.
Tracing genetic changes back to ancestors of this fish suggests that mutations have occurred as a result of adaptation to their environment. Marine organisms are organisms that have terrestrial predecessors who enter the sea later, and those who obtain all or most of their food from a marine environment. They can be divided into several groups. This comprises several genera and species of bacteria, protozoas, planktons, marine invertebrates, and vertebrates. Based on habitat and mobility, there are three main groups of marine animals: nekton, plankton, and benthos. Planktons are considered floaters. All swimmers of marine habitats belong to nekton community. Fish are the most common creatures belonging to nekton. Benthos comprises marine life including animals and plants that live in the benthic region of the marine habitats. The benthic region is a sea bottom that extends from littoral zone to the open sea. About 94 million years ago, the deep sea was largely populated by fish. Scientists believe that fish that live at seafloor level, otherwise known as benthic fish fauna, first emerged in shallower waters. These initially shallow water fish came to replace the ancient deep sea fish, which were wiped out in extinction level events. A vital part of the modern deep sea fish's evolution was about their adaptation to living lower depths of the ocean compared to their ancestors. This evolution included the morphing of their body and the genetic makeup, which was largely affected by the changing of their metamorphosis. Metamorphosis entails the speeding up of the rate of growth from a juvenile to an adult animal or plant. This ability is believed to stem from the gene plasticity of this fish, which allowed them to better control their body structure to adapt to their environment. This genetic efficiency ensures that deep sea fish can better maximize their energy stores and their reproductive capabilities. Tracing changes from ancestors gave us a broader picture of organisms' genetic responses to external environments.
So far, we have seen how and why mutations occur in deep sea fish. To recap quickly, we learned that mutations of deep sea animals allowed for adaptation of certain traits such as vision, ability to get food, and hide from predators. Evolution made it possible for these animals to maximize their energy stores, which has allowed them to attract mates and create offspring with similar DNA. But besides that, there are a lot of unknown species and things to discover about them in the future, and there's a lot of research to be done. From there, we want to explain the ethical concepts while conducting research moving forward. While it is important to understand our Earth and the creatures on it, the goal of studying organisms is to learn more information about the world without harming it. In order to avoid destroying habitats or organisms, there are specific ways to go about studying the species. According to the dictionary, ethic is the rules of conduct recognizing respect to a particular class of human actions or a particular group or culture. This means that we have to remain mindful around the handling and treatment of deep sea animals while they're being studied. We need to treat them with respect and care, ensuring that the studies will not affect the species so they can safely return to their habitat. But that has a solution. Researchers can take some steps. The first one is to potentially use research methods that will not be as invasive, such as use of technology. Making 3D animations would be a great way to do research without making a huge impact in their life cycle. The second is to actually evaluate the research procedures and reduce those procedures as much as possible. With that, we conclude our video lesson and we hope you learned something new and enjoyed it.